So yes.
So does the heart monitor, does that interfere with intimacy, or does that like promote it like through this playing doctor sort of thing?
Well, thanks to NFP, hasn't been an issue we've had to confront, but tomorrow it would be. So
just in the nick of time then.
Yeah. So when we were scheduling this, I was like, how long I got to have it on? Because if it would have had to be on tomorrow, I'd be like, yeah, can we wait like 10 days, 8 days, whatever. Welcome back, everyone. Craig and Jonah here today. So I ghosted Jonah today. I overslept.
I was glad you're still alive. I was worried that maybe
the
heart monitor saw something bad happen.
Yeah, and so that's why the camera's kind of zoomed up on my ugly face, because I have a shirt on that will give the super sleuths a key where I'm from. Okay.
Yeah.
So
you're right about that. Don't lean back too far.
Yeah, I'm just gonna peek. So I can't use the regular camera, and the reason is because I'm on a heart monitor. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment.
All
and so yesterday we did the live stream because Jonah was out of town, and I didn't realize I had this shirt on, so I had to put on an overhead, like a pullover, and turn the air conditioner way down in here. So I did that. Well, then I couldn't get the thing off my head, so I had to go home and have my wife pull it off. So I got these monitors on my body, these probes. This is the last day I have to have them.
Did they have to shave your chest?
No.
Okay, just wondering.
I'm not.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, I'm on the edge of where you might want to do it, but the last time when I had EKG, they said, "It's like, no, I'm tough, just rip it off."
Oof.
They did.
Just like 40-year-old virgin. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah,
Getting the wax.
That's right. The arms don't translate as much to the chest, but it's there. It's just inconsistent.
All right.
Intermittent.
Yeah.
And so I have these heart monitor, and I'm afraid to like pull these probes out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they come off this afternoon, so I'm excited about that.
How long has it been on?
It's a 48-hour thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was following a heart stress test last week, which I took as a personal challenge to beat the time. My doctor affirmed I did very good on that.
Well, that's great.
That's good. Yeah.
So your heart's strong.
Yeah, I was willing to take a chance dying in the process, but I wanted the best score.
Yeah.
And so yes.
So does the heart monitor, does that interfere with intimacy, or does that like promote it like through this playing doctor sort of thing?
Well, thanks to NFP, hasn't been an issue we've had to confront, but tomorrow it would be. So
just in the nick of time then.
Yeah. So when we were scheduling this, I was like, how long I got to have it on? Because if it would have had to be on tomorrow, I'd be like, yeah, can we wait like 10 days, 8 days, whatever.
I'm willing to take the chance.
Yeah. So anyway, it should be off just in time for the NFP chart. But
all right.
I'll be first to admit I factored that in. So when they called and they got an opening, and they're like, well, we can do it tomorrow. I'm like, we got some today. I said, I'll be in today.
All right.
I'll be in today.
Yeah.
So I got it 2 days ago. So
can you see the results or anything?
No. So it's got this, I don't know. Everything has seemed normal. But if I have an episode, there's a button I could push on there that it's kind of like bookmarks it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are people like watching this all the time. I went into that cardiology lab. I'm like, man, I feel like a baby here, because like everyone there is like really old or like really like out of shape in a wheelchair and stuff like that. So
You were the unicorn there, then.
Yeah, I was the alpha.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
turns out what they think I have is a it's an electrical issue where you're supposed to have one like normal electrical pathway in your heart, and for whatever reason, I have a second pathway that can occasionally misfire.
Oh.
And of course, because of family dynamics, I needed to know what can cause that. It turns out it's a congenital birth defect. So
the COVID vaccine did not change your DNA,
that's
causing you to produce spike proteins continually in your cardiac cells.
that's right. So I was relieved. I was relieved that according to the internet, it's been with me since birth. So that will that won't satisfy the most passionate of believers in my circle, but I can pull out Wikipedia and I could say, here, it's actually your fault that I have this. So anyway, so yeah, so I'm but I'm not allowed to work out right now. She says, well, the doctor says, well, you can go lift weights, but take it easy. I'm like, well, that's not possible.
Yeah,
I'm not able to do that if I don't.
So that sounds like you can't be intimate either if you got to take it easy.
Well, see, that's what I'm a little afraid of.
Did you ask the doctor about that?
No.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but I'm just waiting for my wife to say, "Should you think we should do this?"
What do you think?
I'm willing to take this chance for you, honey.
Got good life insurance?
Not good enough.
So, that's what she'd say, huh?
Yeah. So yeah. If I get grounded because of this, you're gonna have a real grumpy guy next time we get together and record. So
we'll see what happens.
But this has been going on for a while. I'm sure my doctor was like, "You idiot! Why did you wait so long?" But it was noticeably worse when I had Lyme's disease. So I don't know.
But we've had a lot of stuff go on in the last year between the rabies incident and
that's right.
We've had other wild things happen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So so I'm still hooked up to the probes. And hopefully, but it's so in my defense, I think the reason I brought the story up because I overslept. I can't shower with it on.
Oh.
So sorry if it smells a little bit. I tried to wash up as best I could. But I don't sleep very good because I have to sleep on my back and you have to be careful turning around in bed and stuff. So so that's my excuse for
sure. That's fine.
Blowing you off this morning.
I just sat and listened to the podcast. So
you missed our live stream last week.
I did miss it. Yeah, I was driving.
You probably don't want to. Well, you would find it funny. Most of our listeners probably should not go watch that one.
Why not?
Well, we covered a wide. So one of our listeners, Steve, who has his own podcast, foolishly volunteered to co-host that with me.
Okay.
And unbeknownst to me, his parents showed up.
So did he let them know?
Yeah. He told he on his podcast and his Facebook page, he said, "Hey, I'm going over in the Uncharted Catholic Man for
okay.
You guys should show up." And it was nice. There were some people from definitely people that were from his group because I didn't recognize were in the live chat. It was pretty busy. We had annulment proof.
All right, Kevin John Farrell in the house.
We had Kevin Tradicath. We had some of our loyalists, and apparently his parents.
Did they comment?
Apparently, but I didn't know that.
Okay.
I did not know who they were, and I told them after the fact. I said, "I'm kind of glad I didn't know they were there."
Yeah,
because at one point, we were playing the Monty Python "Sperm is Sacred."
Yeah.
That's where we kind of really got off the tracks, and some of the trads got very uncomfortable.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. They said that was too much. We're mocking.
Can't talk about the sperm being sacred?
Apparently. You're not allowed to laugh about it, I guess.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, John, he doesn't like when I laugh.
Yeah, well, it was a couple
more
other
than
ones
him
too. Yeah. So, mea culpa, but it was I don't. I
I
had a
have,
lot of fun, but
yeah, you know, I think we should be able to laugh about things like that.
yeah. So what do you? And Steve and I had a really good conversation about this. Is like, I mean, I don't think we're supposed. I don't think we have to be this solemn, pious in all
Hmm.
respects.
Yeah.
And
It's one thing to mock the Last Supper, like
yeah,
at the Olympics, but just laughing about sperm being the most sacred skill on earth when they're treated like that, I think that's kind of funny.
yeah, yeah. So it was. We covered a wide range of topics, but that was one of them, and we kind of got into a bit of an argument about that. Ordinary Catholics showed up,
No kidding.
which is nice. We got talking about other acts a little bit.
Hmm.
So,
I'll have to go back and listen to it.
yeah.
So, as far as his parents go, did he say anything really embarrassing?
Did he?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh, well then.
Well, I said some things that I would not say in front of someone else's parents, knowingly. Probably.
Out of respect for the parents. The mom, really. Probably.
Yeah. I mean, his dad apparently is a deacon.
Dads get it, though.
Yeah. But he assured me after the fact that they're both, they can handle it.
All right.
And he wasn't worried about it. I was like, well, okay, as long as you're not worried about it.
Don't want Thanksgiving to be awkward.
Yeah. So, I know the live streams, I like the live streams, but it's a less controlled environment than you and I talking. Like, I
Mhm.
kind of know what's going to happen here.
Mhm.
There, it's just wild things can happen. I get carried away, but
Yeah.
the live interaction with followers is really great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I have to see. I'd like to do it more often. It's not the ideal time for us, but we might be able to do it a little more often.
Yeah.
So anyway, so one of our, what I would say, our rad trad followers who was in our Discord for a while and then left, showed up in the comments yesterday and took issue with a number of things that I or we said in some videos. But one of the things was where I made the statement that to the extent that the church says that the only sexual intimacy a couple can have is the conjugal act, I said that sort of cheapens and denigrates the act on our wives, something to that effect. And he thought that was inappropriate. But I think that I don't know. I think that I think they operate under the understanding that, let's say, other acts are just the man's idea, and he's kind of forcing his wife onto it. And we talked about this a little bit on the live stream. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a situation where it's mutually decided we want to do this. And in some instances, it's the wife would rather do it. It's sort of her idea, right? And she would rather do that than deal with periods of abstinence, especially during her fertile times and stuff like that. So, but the reality is, if you're trying to operate under the method that you can only be sexually intimate in the conjugal act and everything else just to be completely hands off yourself or your spouse, that creates an atmosphere where men are, I think, especially men, are seeking the conjugal act just purely for physical release and all that, in addition to the other stuff. But, whereas if you had other outlets for it, I think the conjugal act could become something that's a little more purposeful and special, and not just about satisfying my bodily needs and urges, which of course I'm sure he'd say, well, get those under control. But let's be real here. Right?
Yeah, it's true. And I would agree with that as well. I think having to put your life on the line every single time, if you're in that situation, if you have had difficult childbirths, or if you do need the money as far as keeping your career going, and it's just a big risk to have more children. I don't know, periods of abstinence aren't good for our marriage. I'll tell you that. And we're just a sample size of 1, but it just makes everything more difficult. So I don't know what to do with that.
I just don't. I don't know how anyone can claim legitimately. Maybe Christopher West is different, but I don't know how anyone really can claim
He is
that,
different.
Yeah. that abstinence of any kind of extended variety is better for the marriage than some level
simple
of
acts of intimacy.
Yeah.
That may be imperfect.
Yeah.
Or not the gold standard.
Yeah. I mean, at a bare minimum, for me at least, it requires me to devote a significant amount of mental energy and whatever towards controlling that part of my life. I would say somewhat to the detriment of other areas of my life, whether it's just spiritual or my children or whatever. I'm sorry, I'm going to be a bit of a grump. It's just the way it is. Like, you are just going to be a different, less happy person.
I can hear Christopher West faking outrage and compassion right now, using his fake voice.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can just will your way to not have those. Like,
Yeah.
I think there is a natural cause and effect, price of everything. That fine, if you want me to follow these rules, do it, but here's the version of Craig that you're gonna have to live with.
It's tough, man. I don't know. It is tough because I just don't think, and again, I can only speak for my own relationship, but things just don't go smoothly. Not as smooth. Just not as smooth as when we're frequently intimate. And I don't know what to do with that. You know, it's not like it gets better after a long period of abstinence either. It's just like an engine running without oil. Eventually it gets pretty hot and it doesn't run very well.
Yeah. It's just a grind. I mean,
it is a grind. It is a grind.
I mean, you're one flesh with this person. Like, you are. I mean, you are united to them. It should be unnatural to be separated from them. Like, I don't know why we think that. I don't know why people are surprised.
And that's where, like we've said before, abstinence feels more unnatural than other acts at times. You know, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
I mean, because, you know, according to the letter of the law, the other acts aren't permissible. But then 2352, which is how it's often classified, sure makes it seem like if it's a force of habit, which marriage should be, you know, then you're not as culpable. I don't know.
Yeah, and this is sort of something I was getting into yesterday a little bit in the live stream too. Is one of the troubles with the way that we approach this stuff. So much of it is black and white, hard and fast. This is intrinsically no. This is always a no. I was talking about IVF a little bit, right?
Okay.
Like, you're not even allowed to factor in the couple's intentions or true, you know, the motives of their heart, because we've decided this act is off limits.
And part of the problem I'm sorry to get off on a tangent, but with IVF, I think the problem is that there's frozen embryos that are in excess.
Sure.
Right? And so, like, what if they didn't do that?
And that's one part of it, but certainly the Catholic, let's say, legalist would, you know, take issue with how it happens in the first place, because it's separating the procreation.
Oh yeah.
They don't even allow it from the beginning, even if
unless you use the holy condom, right?
Yeah. Well, even then, though, as I understand it, the difference between IVF and there's the sort of the Catholic version. So IVF, even if you use a holy condom, conception occurs in a petri dish, right? You take the eggs and you put the sperm together, and they're fertilizing them in a lab, which, as I understand, the church says that's not correct. Like, you can't.
And I can understand that. It's
that,
not
right?
natural.
Whereas the quote unquote Catholic version uses, I believe, the holy condom, and then you go in and they basically insert the sperm and maybe the egg together inside
Okay.
the woman. Like, so conception, if it occurs, is occurring within her body.
Is that okay?
As I understand that is potentially acceptable.
Okay.
That's I think there are people that disagree about that because you're still kind of really contorting the whole
sperm
process.
is kind of separated.
Yeah, but it's possible. It's possible Catholics can do that, but whatever.
Gray area.
Yeah. But getting back to the underlying circumstances of how conception occurs and how the product is made, you're not even allowed to, because some will compare the contraceptive mentality to that, and say, well, this is just a natural product of people being contraceptive. I'm just like, I don't know about that. I mean, people, the stereotypical contraceptive couple is the one that wants the pleasure and enjoyment of the conjugal act without having to become parents out of it, right? Well,
for a variety of reasons.
For a variety of reasons, but with IVF, it's the opposite. They're willing to give up they it's a sacrificial thing. They want a child so much they're in essence giving up the enjoyment of doing the conjugal act the way that we want to do it in an effort to produce this child. And my only observation is that and I in the church or those that say, well, their motivations, while good, still don't make it a valid act because the act itself is intrinsically disordered. My only observation is I don't know. I mean, it's difficult because you can't even talk about these things because we've already determined circumstances and intention don't matter, right? But they kind of do. They kind of do, right? And so I think that is, kind of getting back to, let's say, other acts. You run into the same roadblock because other than our space, which I think people are talking about, if you go into any kind of, let's say, mainstream Catholic podcast or whatever, you're not even going to have a conversation about whether, let's say, for example, other acts are beneficial to the marriage or whether, on the contrary, they have long-term harm to the marriage, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's an intrinsically off-limits act, right?
When in reality, other acts are different for a newly married couple that decides not to have children at all.
Yeah.
Versus people that have 10 kids and it's dangerous for them to have more kids. Well,
and that gets into something that I really can't do justice today. But we may cover this next week. I have someone that's versed in this, but there's this thing called the fundamental option. You ever heard that?
No.
And I'm going to butcher this, but the fundamental option is the idea that individual acts, individual mortal sins, for example, should not determine your salvation. It should be dependent more on your general disposition. Are you generally turned towards God, or are you generally turned? Is your general disposition towards God, and you make this mistake, or is your general disposition away from God?
And that makes sense too.
It makes some sense, but the church, at least John Paul II, I think in Veritas Splendor, more or less rule that out.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if he condemned it as heresy, but say then that's not how we approach things. But the concept is still out there, and where it tends to come up in circles is the Catholic sexual ethics thing. And this is something I was kind of touching on a little bit in the live stream yesterday. Is, does it matter whether we're evaluating a couple considering other acts if they're, let's say, my age and have brought many children into the world, and now we're on that fence where now it probably is imprudent, grave reason, whatever, not to bring more children into the world, as opposed to when we were married for 4 years and had 2 children and were in good health and all
Mhm.
that. Do the circumstances not matter?
Well, and the thing is that disposition does matter, I think, when it comes to mortal sin, as far as full knowledge and full consent, because you can live a life where you don't really care about God and it doesn't really matter. Or if, like when it comes to a variety of things, if you're like, God, I really don't want to do this, but I'm between a rock and a hard place. I think that's a different circumstance.
Yeah, I'm personally uncomfortable with the idea that something could even be a grave sin if it occurs out of sort of, like I said, the rock and the hard
Weakness.
place.
It occurs
Right?
out of weakness.
You're in a compromised situation that makes doing the right thing extraordinarily difficult.
It seems like you don't have full consent.
Yeah, and maybe that is just at the end of the day how we approach those things. But I'll be honest, I'm not super satisfied with that response, because it still is sort of assumes and bypasses the conversation about whether it's grave matter in the first place. Because I just think to myself, you know, you've got someone who's near the end of their fertility. They've had a large family, and let's say the wife is now in a situation where maybe there's no, hasn't had major health problems, but statistically, you're in that place where things can really start to go bad quickly, right? And you don't find out until you're pregnant, and you can't do anything about it, right? Um, why is it? And let's say they've been open to life the whole time, they've never used birth control, and now they're like, we want to have some semblance of intimacy in our marriage, at least for a few
because
years.
It's important,
right? And we have children. We're still raising children. We need to be thriving individually and as a couple. And for that couple who, let's just say everyone agrees they have a perfectly legitimate, valid reason not to get pregnant again, right? Let's say there's no question they have grave reason. So they're not obligated to have any more children. So why are they bound to just be completely, abstinent or mostly abstinent, as opposed to these other things?
She's postmenopausal.
Yeah, right. Like, why, if they're not obligated to undergo, to engage in the conjugal act at all, because they're not obligated to make any more children, why are those acts for them just as intrinsically disordered?
And the guy's just supposed to wait.
Yeah.
Until it comes at night.
I think that is a real problem, or a real conundrum for sort of the official church narrative on these things, because I don't see how we can't factor in and consider those things something other than, are they giving full consent to that? Because I still think I think that's assuming more than is necessary about the morality of their actions, right?
And really, I think if there's a definition about what openness to life means within marriage, does it mean that you have as many kids as possible? If it doesn't, under our current understanding of it, I just think that the pressures around the act would be different if there was just some sort of definition as to how it should function within a marriage, as far as what openness to life looks like, and that the conjugal act is the perfect, expression of that. But other forms of intimacy might be okay too. I don't know how to, what that would look like as far as within church teaching.
Yeah, because
intimacy is important. You can't just deny that, abstinence somehow helps marriage. I don't think it does. And intimacy is better for the couple, better for the family, really, as far as seeing the parents interact.
And are we not allowed to factor in the fact that, if we're being real about it, the couple that is abstaining long term, there's a much higher likelihood that one of them, probably the man, is going to slip into some other things that are not good for anyone.
For the marriage at all.
Right. And in these kinds of considerations and discussions never really happen because, like I said, they've decided these acts can't be done. So it doesn't matter the circumstances, it doesn't matter the effects, other than just suck it up and carry your cross is always a response. But I just think that is, I think that is, I don't know, too broad of a brush. Like I think we should be able to look at the totality of the circumstances, even just in a speculative way, without necessarily questioning the ultimate moral conclusions, but just look at the big picture here. What is going to happen? There is going to be definite negative consequences to the marriage, maybe some positive consequences. Maybe,
yeah, I mean, there is merit in suffering, and that's fine. But to go on for like 10 years like that, I think is...
Yeah, there's going to be definite negative consequences to that relationship, to the family, or whatever, as the couple tries their best to follow that. There's a really good chance that one or both of them are going to fall into some types of sins, 2352 or whatever, that they would not do, or at least would not have as much of a struggle with if there was some ongoing intimacy, right?
I would say that's without a doubt.
Right. So realistically, for most people, they are not going to embark on this continence journey and live it out perfectly. Let's be real about it. Like, so the problem, so what I see happening in sort of the church,
and really nobody can live that perfectly within marriage from the beginning. Yeah, I mean, it's a rule set that is impossible to live out.
Yeah, and if you apply like the Father Ripperger type approach, you'll say, I think he, I don't know if he said it or someone like him has said it, but basically said, yeah, if natural family planning results in one of the spouses committing a single act of solo, it is no longer worth it, and you're obligated to ditch the NFP and just go making babies. Making babies is the one size fits all solution to all problems.
Nobody is going to be using NFP then.
Well, I think that's...
And then it makes you wonder, is the deck supposed to be stacked against us in a way that we grow, or we just go to confession continually? I don't know.
We were talking about that a little bit in the live stream yesterday too, is just like how much of the natural realities of our life, our biology, our urges, or whatever, are baked into our DNA, and how much of it is quote unquote original sin. And I think historically, I wouldn't say the church, but certainly like church doctors, Augustine's, Aquinas, those folks, I think have put a lot of emphasis on how our sexual appetites have been affected by original sin, more so.
When really they don't. I mean, there's no way they can know that.
They can't. There's no witnesses around. There was something that came around on Twitter. You ever see those things where like you can sit by someone on an airplane for a long time, and the characters were like, would you rather sit by Moses, Abraham, Adam and Eve, some of the apostles? And I said, Adam and Eve, without question. I'm going to record the whole conversation. Right?
Yeah.
Onan would have been a second.
I knew Onan was on your mind.
Yeah, but Adam and Eve, like, no one really knows what life was like before the fall.
Absolutely.
And it almost becomes one of these things where they say, well, yeah, this is because of the fall, and it's like our job to like disprove that. Like we have to prove a negative. I think that's flipped upside down.
And I just don't think that God would set up marriage in a way that it's impossible to live. I just don't see that.
Yeah.
And I think that was the sort of thing that Jesus didn't like, at least from the Pharisees, that the Pharisees were essentially making people live not only fake lives, as far as like they're, more concerned with how they look and what they did than actually loving God. And I think that's, you can kind of get to that within all these rules as well, is that you're not really focused on loving God when you're concerned about, you're probably going to the confessional to confess these sins, and you're not really focused on your marriage then either. So
Someone the other day, I don't know if it was John Farrell or someone else of his mindset, made the claim that the church that that allowed NFP as the true Pharisees because it's adding on burdens to people that weren't there, and I'm like, nah, I don't think that's how it works,
John
buddy.
Farrell.
Just like that guy is on a one-man crusade to destroy NFP. God bless him, but
It's quite a mission.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know that going after the NFP couples is the crusade that we need right now.
That's really funny.
But you know, but the reality is, and I see it in the comments all the time, is people trying to live NFP and be completely hands off each other
Mm-hmm.
and themselves during the quote unquote abstinence times have a real hard time with that. I have a real hard time with
that's
that.
the time when your wife is also most interested.
Right.
I mean,
right.
It's a brutal time to be hands off.
Right. And so most couples, I would say most couples choose one of two routes. They say, screw this NFP stuff. Let's just use birth control. But there's this growing
96% of Catholics.
Yeah. But then there's this growing movement of, let's say, the conservative type Catholics that is say NFP is stupid, just become providentialists and just make babies until you can't make babies anymore.
I wonder if that's like 1% of Catholics.
Yeah.
I mean, so you got 3%.
Yeah. It's becoming a louder and more vocal part of the church, fortunately or
at least on social media.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I just think that is just like, we are not putting that genie back in the bottle, and I don't think we should. Like that is not the fight to have, is to fight internally about NFP, because it makes us look unserious, and then people are just going to go use birth control and not screw around with NFP. They're not going to go take the providentialist route. Most people aren't going to do that aren't already predisposed. So like the let's say the people on the fence, or the people that aren't all die-hard trad Catholics or whatever, if you can't sell them on NFP, you're not going to sell them on this other stuff. So, but they sure spend a lot of time getting angry at folks that are not just pumping out babies all the time. And I don't know. I don't think that's the right course. I think that is a mistake. I think that's gonna blow up in someone's face here before real long. But
yeah,
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll just populate themselves past us. I don't know.
It's tough to say what's going to happen.
So anyway, but this is why, we in John Farrell did ask yesterday. He's like, well, what's your solution in the perfect world? What's your solution? And I came right out and said, and I've said this for a while now. I think the solution, I think the only option the church has, if it wants, unless it's going to do a complete reversal on the birth control thing, which I said I don't think is going to happen.
I don't think it has to.
And I don't think it has to. But even if the church wanted to, I know there's people in the church that want to, but as an institution, I don't think the church can make that U-turn. I think it had a crossroads at Humanae Vitae that if it wanted to, it could maybe do it then. And it gave strong consideration to doing that and decided not to. I don't think you reverse course on that, because the church's status as this infallible kind of unique religion that doesn't change with the times would be shattered by that reverse course. So as a practical matter, no one's changing birth control rules. All we have is to stick with NFP and give couples more latitude about how they prudentially have an intimate life when the conjugal act is not available to them.
Encourage them to be open to life, but open intimacy as well.
Absolutely. I truly believe that is the only viable path forward.
And it makes sense.
Right. Because I'm sorry, you are not. Like, people are not going to be like, well, if I get married, we just have to like have children as much as possible. Because here's the reality of that. Even if you do that, you have postpartum periods. You have things
Sorry,
that,
Diego.
yeah, get ready, buddy. Life is going to happen. Like,
Yeah.
For us, life was a grind for a long time, not just because we were constantly using NFP. Like, having children brings about a lot of abstaining in your marriage.
Already.
Right? And so if you are someone that struggles with sexual type matters, those do not go away simply because you have a bunch of kids.
Mm-hmm.
I would say for a lot of people, they just get worse.
And it's not even struggling with sexual type matters. There's a certain aspect of biology that's present there as well.
Right.
And you're just attracted to your wife. Like, it's...
Yeah.
There's a natural desire for intimacy.
And I think the more children you have, the bigger your family is, the more you need each other. I personally
absolutely
think. I would say that for us, when the more our obligations as parents have increased, our need for that type of intimacy in our marriage has only gotten more so.
And it's important for the children to see parents that love each other.
And
it's difficult to turn that switch on and off.
I totally invite people, because someone made the comment yesterday about, other acts of, does it have long-term consequences? Show us. Because literally every person that we've talked to, and we talked to a lot of people about this, they all say it's been nothing but positive for the marriage.
And I don't know what to say about that.
And that may not mean anything. I'll be the first to admit that, but I don't know. It may mean something, though. But it may mean something.
It very well could.
Hey, the Lord is shouting at us like, folks, I gave you this. Why are you not using these tools I gave you? I don't know. That seems like a very realistic possibility.
And the funny thing is that it certainly opens the door to having more children than just strict abstinence.
Yeah.
Because mistakes definitely happen.
Well, yeah. And let's just say, let's say the counter argument is, well, if you're abstaining long enough, you'll be overcome by moments of passion, and you'll give in, and you'll make a baby. Well, is that really how you want it to happen?
Mm-hmm. From a moment of weakness?
Yeah.
Or should it be a thought out decision?
I personally think that intentional parenthood is something that Catholics
it sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Of all the things you're going to do in life,
you're affecting other people's lives forever.
Shouldn't that be the most intentional thing you do in your life? Shouldn't that be more intentional than buying a house, buying a car, changing jobs, buying a new refrigerator? But for a lot of people, if you follow these standards, it is the most unintentional thing that happens, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a problem that I don't think the traditional model has a good answer for. Right.
And I don't think they really care, because they would just say, you just need to trust in God.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah. And again,
there's a fine line, though, between how much God wants you to use your, intellect and trust in him, and just going willy-nilly on having as many kids as possible.
And likewise, I think there is the possibility of a slippery slope. There is the danger that couples that have some latitude could become selfish in their own ways, but
I think that's a minority.
Yeah, but I think that's a prudential thing. And I personally tend to think there are people that would much rather just have this black and white. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to make any decisions. I just act.
That's true.
Rather than dealing with that
uncertainty,
that uncertainty and that ongoing discernment that is required by this approach. But
you have to discern things in your daily life too.
You should be. You should be.
Yeah.
A lot of couples, I think, don't have. I mean, communication is something that is definitely the key problem in most marriages, because you have to communicate in a way that you've never communicated before you got married. And for a lot of couples, most of us struggle and some of us never figure out communication. I'm still learning how to communicate better with my wife, right?
Yeah, same here.
But this requires a level of communication that most couples don't.
It's difficult to have early on.
Yeah,
for sure.
and don't just organically get. Like
Mhm.
they have to go through some hard times or maybe some coaching or therapy or whatever. So the approach that we're offering, I think, is probably more difficult in some ways than what the traditionalists propose. But I think it is the authentically Catholic version.
It does make sense, and I don't know. It makes sense from a natural approach,
Mm-hmm.
just as far as how marriages thrive, and
Yeah.
you're not introducing anything artificial into it.
Yep.
And
yeah, I think it.
But it's not okay according to the letter of the law.
Well, that's what they say.
So
I mean, and on a practical level,
unless it is according to 2352, where there are
or if it's not
exceptions.
even if it truly is outside 2352, it's in that gray area of the catechism.
Mhm.
I mean, is that intentional? I don't know, but I do think
if it is, it'd be nice to know.
It would be nice to know. I think a lot of couples would like to know that because these are difficult choices they're making.
Yeah.
And someone just producing another human being because they feel like that's the only moral option they have. I think folks in that situation are entitled to a little more clarity about this, which is why we keep harping about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I genuinely think if this is something that the church could give its blessing to, it should do so and clearly do so, because I think it represents a very viable, holistic Catholic approach to these things that past approaches I just think don't do.
Mm-hmm.
So, or maybe we're heretics. I don't know.
And then all we can do is just trust in God's mercy and go to confession. I don't know.
Do not take theological advice from us.
Yep.
Go to confession. Yeah. So, well, that was a good conversation.
It was.
I think it was important.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I'll check in with you next time. There'll be a lot of good stuff, highlights or lowlights, for me to report back on next time we get together and record. So
sounds good, man.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Jonah. Thanks for your patience today.
You bet.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. And until next time, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good one.